Welcome to Going Beyond. Thank you so much for being with me once again. The world of HR is something that not that many of us understand. So it's really wonderful for me to welcome into my studio today Latha Pandiarajan. Now she is the co-founder of that very famous HR company called Ma Foi. But I'm going to ask her what it means because to me it sounds French. So is it French, Latha?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you. So what does Ma Foi actually mean?
Yeah, Ma Foi is a French word which means my word. I give my word to you. That's what we really wanted it to mean. So we started way back in 1992. Honestly, when even the word human resources was not there.
Exactly.
It evolved a little later, late 90s, I must say. So it's been a very interesting journey from Ma Foi to CLHR, and which is also into HR, and CL is also a French name again. I'm fascinated by these French words.
What's this connection with the French? Please tell me.
Though, of course, I didn't formally learn French, but I was fascinated by the language as such. So when we started our first venture, I said, let's have something which is very global sounding and at the same time very meaningful. You know, the word should really sound meaningful, and that was the time when a lot of companies used to take money from candidates for placements and all that. So we wanted to do something very professional in that way, and which was happening around the globe, though not in our country. So we said, let's create something which is very global with a global sounding name, and that's how I chose Ma Foi.
But a lot of people have heard of Ma Foi. Are they confused with the pronunciation?
Absolutely, yes. We've had people even saying mafia.
Oh, that's not very good. Not good at all.
Yeah. So, but I just, laughingly say probably the recall value is higher, so it's okay.
It's mafia.
So people mispronounce it because, as you know, French words, it's not easy to pronounce.
It isn't. They're spelled differently, pronounced differently.
Yeah.
So when you first started, you've told me why you kind of thought of going into HR. But has HR been entirely successful around the world?
Absolutely. I think in the last 3.5 decades, which I've seen, I think there's so many changes that have happened, and there have been very important moments where, things have completely changed. Like there was a time when, automobile industry, manufacturing, all this was so important. So people were taking care of, there used to be a famous thing, plant machinery money. This is what was important at one time, So then late 90s, I think, honestly, I think when the software industry started picking up and India became very important in the global map in terms of IT. Thanks to various things that way. There was one phenomena called Y2K. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
So when, a lot of engineers from India went into US as such. So that was the time when, organizations realized that they need to take care of people. That way. That was late 90s, if you really see, 98, 99. When anywhere you go, people will say, my son has gone to US for some software job and things like that. So that was the time I think human resources started evolving and gaining prominence in that sense. So, yeah.
To my mind, HR industry itself is a very intangible. It's an intangible product.
Yeah.
Am I getting it right?
No, you're absolutely right. It is, I think, because you're dealing with people.
Yes.
Not something which is concrete or whatever. So the people, physical, emotions, all this, I think, become very important. So I think that's what also makes HR interesting in that sense. I can see a lot more people now wanting to learn HR. Because I think it's not only the physical but also the mental health, which is extremely important today for every employee.
From my own experience, I have often clashed, if that's the right word, with the HR head, because the HR head would actually choose a person for the job, and my demands or my requirements were somewhat different.
Yeah.
And so does that happen very often?
Not very often. It all depends on the person. I think it is important. As a HR professional, I always feel, I think you should really understand the client very well, okay, the culture. There are many times the client says something, there's something which is very latent, which, the client is not able to express, but, that's what they want. So I think a thorough HR professional, a good HR professional is one, in my view, who can really understand both that aspects.
Right.
That
How
way.
do you find that perfect HR person then?
I mean, today I think there are lots of organizations like, 𝐸𝐶𝐿RI, a lot of MBA organizations which are training people in HR as such. And I think that innate passion is important in that sense, like, I'm a chartered accountant by profession,
know that,
but
I
by
believe.
passion I'm a HR professional in that sense. So I think it really, comes out of knowledge and passion.
How do you find when you're actually looking at people, do you find that they are receptive to the HR person? Therefore, I'm asking, is the HR person the most important person when I go to look for a job then?
HR as a profession today has become a lot more important in every organization. In fact, in HR we always say, we've become from backroom to boardroom kind of a thing today, because every boardroom has a HR professional. Because as I said, like, it is human resources. Today, if you don't have talent, you may have ideas, you may have money, but if you don't have good talent, you can't run the organization effectively in that sense. So I think today many organizations are giving a lot of importance to HR professionals.
Right. So Latha, now tell me that when you approach a client, is the client totally dependent upon the type of person you choose? Because I gather that you choose somebody and then send them to that particular company?
Yeah, so it's like, it's completely a collaborative process. If you really see, it also depends on the client, how they really explain, give the job descriptions to us,
yes.
kind of a thing, and then how we understand. That's why I said, like, it's also important not to understand just the role and the job description, but the ethos and the culture of the organization, whether the person will fit in. Because there are lots of organizations which will have different kinds of culture that way. And like, we've had interesting cases when people come and tell us, like, we don't want toppers. Like, so there are organizations which really tell us, no, we want people who are little medium, yeah, it's not the ones we want the 80s, 90s percentage and all that. Because, like, the various needs for a specific role also, somebody who can really communicate well, or somebody who can just quietly sit and work. Okay, so different things. So I think as a HR professional, it's extremely critical for us to understand what is the real need of that client. And once that we understand, then it becomes easier for us to generate options.
So when a young person goes into a job in a different company where you have placed them, what happens if the company suddenly decides that they're not quite as good as you probably told them they would be? How does it work then?
Yeah, interesting. Like, see, I wanted to really, I like this question because we're doing a lot of work, Jennifer, these days on skilling. That way, the last 10 years, the government's also really spending a lot of money in terms of skilling the youth, because I think India is in an evolutionary stage.
Indeed.
Okay, so we really
sure.
see, like, couple of decades back, people were really bothered about studying, like schooling. And today, I think, thanks to many initiatives that I think, especially in places like Tamil Nadu, our gross enrollment ratio is 48%, which is almost 2 in 1% gets into college. Okay, which is extremely good in that sense. So now comes the next stage of financial independence, job and things like that. Okay, so for that, I think we still see a lot of gap between what the corporations want, organizations want, and what the academicians really churn out.
But do you, as a company, actually look at only people who are highly educated, or do you ever go down to the grassroots? Do you go down into the rural areas? Is that also a marketplace from where you can bring people?
Absolutely. We work with all levels of people in that sense, and we do pan-India mandates in that sense. Like, so we go to rural, tier 2, tier 3 towns and all that. See, our strength has been right now, as I said, like, we are, our mother company is called CLHR. That way, Ma Foi is part of CLHR right now. Yeah. And CL has offices all over the country. And we are very close to the candidate, so that's how we define ourselves, that we are very close, so that tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, we are able to really recruit students and put them into the right jobs as such.
Right. Over the years, how many people would you have placed? Have you got any idea of numbers?
I'm sure, like, more than 20 lakhs of people.
As many as that?
Yes, yes, yes. So it's like, Jennifer, we've been in this industry for the last 35 years.
I know, that's a long time. You started it with your husband, did you?
Absolutely. We started on the 15th of August, 1992.
Wow. But he's been a former politician.
Absolutely.
How did he move from that into HR then?
Because we honestly also think that's also if an HR space, because we are actually managing people. Okay, I think like we are not from political families, but you know, the passion to really create a change, add value, and I think politics gave us the platform, honestly. So that was the only interest.
Right. Do you find that you have been concentrating a lot on women candidates? Is that one of your little pet peeves?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. In fact, like I work with a lot of girls, especially rural areas, to really, you know, sensitize them in terms of financial independence, having a job kind of a thing. And also I work with a lot of women, rural women, for sustainable livelihood also.
Oh, really?
In
Tell
that
me
sense.
about that, Latha. Tell me.
Yeah, so we self-help groups you must have heard of,
Yes,
a lot of people.
𝐒𝐻𝐺s,
So
yes.
actually 𝐒𝐻𝐺s. So our foundation, we have the Ma Foi Foundation. It's one of the largest in South India. So we work with a lot of women in rural areas to really train them in sustainable livelihoods. So whether it may be jute bag making, and we've also been doing ropes in terms of rope making, many things that we really, you know, train them and see that they are sustainable as such. So I must have worked with 50,000 women.
Oh, that's
that way.
so heartening to hear that,
Absolutely.
because
very satisfying
I
also.
think finally women are beginning to get a place in the sun. Don't you think
Absolutely,
that is
sure.
one of the things? Yes.
Yeah.
So you've done so many things along your very long and illustrious, I must say, career. Is there anything that is particularly close to your heart?
Yeah, of course. I've worked with a lot of students also. Our foundation in the initial stages worked with a lot of government school students that way, and we used to give them scholarships. I still remember very vividly, like, you know, one incident which happened in one of the government schools in North Chennai, when principal called me and said, like, there are a lot of NGOs who work with us, you know, supporting students who are studying well. Why don't you really work with students who are not doing well, you know, the last 10 in a class?
Right.
And it was really something like it, which opened my eyes. Really started doing some work around that. And we figured out, like, you know, it's so difficult for these kids because most of them come from underprivileged background, alcoholic fathers and all that kind of a thing. So we started working with these kids, and we used to call this program the Gems of Disha. Okay, Disha was our flagship program.
Right,
Disha
yes.
means showing direction,
Yes.
basically. So we started working with them. And we learnt a lot as to, you know, because molding them at the right age is so important that way. And we started working with the first 100 students in, you know, 10 schools as such in North Chennai, and slowly molding them, making them understand life, you know. The thing is, like, they felt so good because they had a companion to listen to, kind of a thing as such, because at home, like, it was so difficult for them. Life was very difficult.
I could imagine that.
Yeah.
I could well imagine. Yes.
Yeah, and I still remember the first 100 which went to write the 10th public exam. Even when my kids wrote, I was not so stressed and tense.
You were worried about these.
Yeah, and 80% of them passed.
How wonderful.
Yeah, so I think that was great validation for us, for the foundation as such.
See, Latha, to my mind, there are only 24 hours in the day. And now I'm just wondering, where does this lady find so much time to do so many different things? How has it worked for you? What about all your other commitments? You must have so many.
Yeah, true. But I think absolutely it's God's grace. I must really thank the Almighty for giving me that strength and giving me a supportive environment. As such, I love to go to my office. Okay, I've never felt stressed at all because I always felt it's family for me. Like, you know, it's not even extended family, it is family in that sense. So I think, like, I've learned to take things as they come. Of course, challenges have always been there in that way.
Surely, yes.
But as I said, like, you know, I've really felt very supported, and it's not been a journey alone as such. It's been a lovely, meaningful journey with a lot of people with me, with all its ups and downs.
Must be lots of downs as well.
Absolutely.
Now, when you place a young person into a job, do they actually have to pay you for your services? And how does that work?
No, absolutely no. Like we always take money only from the clients.
Oh, I
as
like
such.
that so much.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that these young people are not actually paying a
they don't
bribe
pay
for
us.
somebody to give
No,
them a job, right?
absolutely no. Absolutely, it's only from the clients we take the money. So we train these kids and we place them as such in many organizations. We try and generate options for them, and we see how we can groom them a little, because the tier 2, tier 3 town students, we've really seen over the years, they are very intelligent, but they need a little bit of grooming, hand holding kind of a thing.
Indeed.
If that's there, I think they really manage. My always I believe, like let them take a job first and start earning money. They'll find their way. Okay, there will be some challenges, but I'm sure, like I always tell every girl, just take a job. Okay, I think against all odds, against family, whatever it may be, just see to it that you're independent. After that, you will be able to fend for yourself and find your way.
Right. Latha, I want to tell you a little story, and that was that in the US, I came across a lady who told me that she was working with this self-help group, and their job was actually to teach young women how to dress for an interview, how to dress to go to the office. Is that something that they do in India? Is that something that you can't do it at that at all?
Yeah, we also do. When we do our training, we also train them in terms of writing a resume. How do you go for an interview? Again, I'll give you an example.
Please.
Like we had some rural children, going for, I went for the interview that day and I was sitting with them, and I just noticed some of these boys, wearing some bright colors like pink and green, and you see like rural areas.
Yes.
Not their fault,
They have
that's
no
how,
idea.
yeah, they know.
Absolutely.
So after the interview, I checked with my people, why are these kids in that, it's a formal interview, people have come, clients have come. So then I checked with these boys, like what happened, why you like, they're saying like, in Tamil, telling me that, they told us to come brightly dressed, well dressed. For them, that was, well dressed, brightly.
That was probably his best shirt,
absolutely.
Really.
So it's just that I always feel it's that sensitivity we really need. Okay, as to like how do you, we need to relate to them well. Once we understand where they come from and are able to guide them, I think things become a lot easier.
Right. Why would a company come to you? Does it mean then they do not have to have their own HR person to do their donkey work? Is that the way it works?
That both ways, like there are companies which will have their own HR department, which will do some core jobs, and certain other jobs gets outsourced as such. Okay, and there are certain companies who have outsourced their entire HR to us. Okay, so we've become an outsourced arm for them as such. So we work both ways in that sense.
So what happens, does it happen, of course, if the company is not satisfied with that particular candidate or that particular person? Do they actually get back to you and say, we're not happy?
They do, of course, they do give us a feedback and things like that. Sometimes, like, there are some replacement clauses also we work with in that sense. But yeah, we try to see that, if there's a possibility to retain them, to see what has gone wrong kind of a thing. And yeah, if it doesn't work out, of course, we've been transparent with many of the candidates also.
But that puts an additional pressure on the young person who's at that job. So does it mean that they actually have to report to Ma Foi because you place them there, plus to the organization they're working with? How do they cope? Is it two different things, two different bosses? Are they,
No, the employees don't report to us once we place them.
Oh, really?
That way, yeah. Once we place them, it is their job. Like we have two kinds of recruitments. One is the permanent recruitment, we call, which is like completely, it's the responsibility of the client after we place them.
Oh, okay.
What happens to the employee and all that. There is another business which we are into, which is called staffing, which is like temporary recruitment. Like a large organization may tell us like we need 100 salespeople across the country. So we will recruit them, we will put them on our roles. They are our employees and then depute them to the large organization. So we call it a staffing mandate in that sense. Okay, so the company will pay us the salary and our fee together, and we manage the employee then in terms of the social security, the PF, the insurances, everything is our responsibility.
So that means it makes the company's life very much easier, right?
Easier, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When these people are placed as part of your HR industry, the business itself, Do these people, the candidates, do they actually come back to you at any time and say, well, I'm very happy here, thank you very much, or do they do
Yeah,
that?
there have been many instances when people
How
have been
nice.
extremely happy, and that's what gives us meaning.
I would
That's what gives
imagine.
us tremendous satisfaction, because
Yes.
we always feel there are various important decisions in one's life. It can be marriage, it can be job, a shift in a job, and things like that. I think to play our own small part in that,
I know, I don't think it's
journey.
a small part at all. I think it's a very big part. What
Yeah.
about the government? Do you ever deal with the government?
Not so much. We work on government projects, as I said. We work on
What does that
government
mean?
skilling projects. Government really has a lot of skilling projects, central government, state government as such. So like for instance, the Tamil Nadu state government is having a project called Naan Mudalvan, where they work with all the colleges in the state to really equip the students to really get a job, good job and all that. So we partner with the governments like that.
So by partnering, you mean that you actually train these students?
Yeah, absolutely.
In what, Latha, how?
In different skills, like now, of course, you know, everybody's talking about AI
Yes,
and
of
all that, so
course. Big
technology
thing.
and all that. So now, in fact, we've set up AI labs in some of the rural schools and semi-urban areas and all that. So it really depends on, we also have, I think our forte has been placements. So in that sense, so we are able to really figure out where the gaps are in terms of placement. So we can really, you know, suggest as to what kind of training can happen to the students also.
Okay. When we're talking about rural students, your rural candidates, do you ever place, are there ever any opportunities for them in their existing rural areas to work, or do you have to necessarily bring them into the big bad city to work?
That's an absolutely a good question. Like we always feel it's always better to really place them as close to as to where they stay, where they
Yeah.
live. Okay, though I think sadly many a times it's very difficult to find good jobs. Okay, so because of various government policies and things like that, even I would feel that distributed development is the most important thing for our country today, honestly. But if it's available, we try and do that. If it's not available, obviously, you know, they have to come to this big bad world.
Big bad city, yeah. What about the issue of language? How are you coping with that? Because these days the world is all about English probably. And how do you manage that? Do they do language training? Is there attention paid to that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of attention is paid to language. I think in states like Tamil Nadu, I think we are better off. I'm not saying like we're very good or anything. I think the students are, you know, at least understand a little bit, because we work with other states also, like Orissa we work, MP we work and all that. There it's a lot more difficult for us, because we need to really even educate them in terms of basics, in terms of English and all that. But communication, as you said, is extremely important. So we pay a lot of attention to really, you know, getting them to speak in English or write in English and all that.
What about students who are going away to the US and other countries abroad to actually, look for the pot of gold, as it were? Do you have to pay special attention to those people?
Our company is not really recruiting students abroad as such. We don't really work with the other countries. We primarily deal with domestic recruitment in that sense. So but we come across a lot of students who want to just go outside and study. We feel good about it if they can go have some experience, and my personal thing is like if they can just come back sometime to our country,
Yes.
and do something out here and add value. I
Right.
think I'll be very happy about it.
So in terms of domestic work that you all do, which is the one state that you have probably the most candidates, or the most number of people who've come to you to get work?
We work primarily, we work in all the states, but we do a lot of work in the south, like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. We also do a lot of work in Maharashtra in that way. And Delhi is also an important center for us in that sense. So we are spread across, but there's a lot of work which happens in the south.
Right. Your company is on the verge of going public.
Absolutely.
When is that likely to happen?
Hopefully, by God's grace, in another month or so.
Oh, wishing you the very best of luck in that.
Thank you
know.
so much. We need loads of it.
I can imagine so.
Yeah.
In terms of companies and their CSR and things. What is it that your firm is doing?
Yeah. So, one is like, of course, our own CSR, we work with a lot of college students, and we also in our foundation work with a number of other corporates whose main focus is employability. Okay, so large banks we work with, large IT companies, so we partner with them, and then whatever they would require, we implement those projects as part of our CSR. And that's been extremely again gratifying because we've been really training.
What about the service industry, Latha?
We do work with any industry as such, and like for instance, as I said, like large banks, or it can be I mean infrastructure companies, or any company whose main, because as I was talking to you about, Jennifer, there's a huge skill gap. Indeed. As we call it in that way. I think that important training for 3-4 months in terms of sprucing up the candidate, getting the communication skills going.
But do you do that, or does the company whom you've sent the person to, do they do that?
We do that. The foundation does it in that sense.
Okay.
So we take on a project and we implement it. So we put on, it can be a training center in Bangalore. Like for instance, right now we're doing an extremely interesting project for this company called Kone Elevators. Okay, apparently there's a lot of need in terms of maintenance people for escalators and elevators. Everywhere there's high-rise buildings and all that. So there are not many people in that category. Okay, so we've partnered with them. So we partnered with another person who has a kind of a simulation in Bangalore for these students who can really learn that.
Right. Way. So for my own interest, do you ever do any training program for the service people when you go into a department store? Because I find sometimes that they're really rude, they're not helpful at all, they don't really care about the customer. What's the importance of you doing that?
Yeah, true. Sales
people, I really think,
sales people as such. We have been training in some of the organizations. Some of the organizations do it themselves as such. So, yeah, I think like sometimes, it also depends on the individual, honestly, how much passion they have.
I can well imagine.
It also depends on the organizations as to how they treat them, Jennifer.
Yes, that is very important. I completely agree with that.
We can train the kids and we can train the students.
But if you don't treat the people well, then they're not going to.
Organizations have to really value them, honestly, as human resources.
Yes, they don't respond otherwise,
Yeah, so
but is the problem here that we have so many people in such a large population that companies can sometimes be a bit rough, I think. I might be wrong about the way they treat people, because availability is there, accessibility is there. Is that something that we need to look at?
Absolutely, but I think sometimes, I've seen the way in my own experience, good talent always gets a job very easily. We've seen people sitting with 2-3 offers. Okay, really? So good talent always gets a job very easily as such that way. Yes. So yeah, I think like it's also up to the organization and the individual, how they really want to learn. And I always tell all these kids, because I personally work with them and all that, I tell them like, you stick on to a job for at least 2 to 3 years and learn very well. Okay, after that moving will become very easy for you. Even suppose you don't like that organization or your boss or whatever it is, but give yourself that 2-3 years to learn in depth, that about the role, about that organization and all. Then of course movement becomes much easier, and you will be able to get a better job.
Well, Latha, then my last and final question to you is, what is it that we see people just job hopping all the time? Short spells in one company, going to somewhere else, going to somewhere else. How do you control that? How does that happen all the time?
Obviously we can't control that, honestly, Jennifer, but I think it's also the mindset of the youth now. Okay, and I think like the way I look at it personally is to learn to accept certain things. The way I think there was a time when loyalty or staying in one job,
old fashioned at best. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think given given the current scenario, when there are so many opportunities today for the students and all that, and I feel probably the way they look at a job is so different. They look at work very differently that way. Like rather than like my parents looked at work very differently.
Yes.
You just
The
join
longer
one organization, like my father was in the railways. Yeah, he just joined and he retired there.
Yes,
that
that's
way.
true.
Absolutely. Our generation started having a lot more opportunities. I think the coming generation, I think like has loads of opportunities in that sense.
Absolutely, yes.
They're living in a seamless world in that sense. They can move anywhere and work and all
Yes.
that. So I think like it's okay.
It's an attitudinal
It's an
problem,
attitude,
I think,
absolutely,
really.
yeah.
But anyway, Latha, you've given me such a great, insight into the HR industry. You've answered so many of my questions. Lots of stuff that's been bothering me, and I've been wanting to have somebody from the HR industry. I want to thank you. Thank you so much, Latha. And I wish you all the very best in your company. May you grow from strength to strength. And thank you for giving me your time today. I know you're a busy, busy lady, probably needs to get to work right away. Well, it was great having Latha here on our program, and I've enjoyed talking with her because I've had so many of my questions answered. And you, my viewers, I hope you've enjoyed it too, listening to her, listening to some very, very salient pieces of advice that she has given me today. And I hope that you could use them someday. So all the best to you. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again. Bye for now.